You are listening to the 5 a.m. podcast, and today is your day. Welcome to the 5 a.m. podcast, where we bring you insightful conversations with thought leaders and influencers who are making headway and definitely some waves in their industries and callings. Well, today we are joined by a man whose personal financial crisis led him to uncover what he describes as one of the banking industry's most closely guarded secrets. Tommy Kilpatrick found himself $85,000 in credit card debt after a promising book deal and infomercial contract fell through. But instead of accepting bankruptcy as inevitable, Tommy took an extraordinary step. He sued the banks themselves in federal court. Well, what he discovered through this process completely transformed his understanding of how bank-issued credit cards operate, and it led him to develop a controversial yet fascinating approach to dealing with credit card debt. Tommy is now dedicated to sharing his knowledge through his book and his website, diy-debtrelief.com, where he offers guidance to those struggling with what he refers to as alleged credit card debt. His background studying accounting, combined with his firsthand experience of these challenging financial institutions, has equipped him with a unique perspective that challenges conventional wisdom about consumer debt. Whether you're currently managing credit card debt or simply interested in understanding more about how our financial system works, today's conversation promises to be eye-opening. Now, before we roll that intro, please share this with your friends, loved ones, and networks. We do appreciate all the shares, likes, and subscribes. And from our analytics, we see that we have viewers from across the earth, not just here on the North American continent. So thank you for being here. Come on in, grab a seat, and listen in. I know many are going to enjoy this conversation. And of course, I usually at this point ask for a 5-star review. I'll wait till you listen to the whole thing. I know it'll be worth 5 stars for sure. And thank you for all your support this week, wherever you may find us online. We do appreciate the support. Now, let's roll that intro. Mr. Tommy Kilpatrick, welcome to the 5 a.m. podcast.
Well, thank you very much. It's not 5 a.m., but it's 8 a.m. for me.
Yes, well, we appreciate you joining us all across the interwebs and the miles. We do appreciate you being here. I wanted to ask about maybe your background and the lead up to what helped you discover not only the solution to the problem that you had.
Here in the Philippines, that's where I am. Everyone always asks me, are you Roman Catholic? And I always tell them that I was raised Episcopal, and they don't understand that. So I explain to them that we're almost the same, except we don't have a pope. So I was confirmed in the Episcopal Church, and in high school back in the 70s, it was a thing to do, be kind of like a Jesus freak. But I saw the beautiful women with a Bible, and so I grabbed my Bible and hung out with them. So I looked at it that way. So, but I was a believer. And then I went to college and I came out as an atheist. And that's about 75% of all Christians going to college come out atheists. And when you look into the statistics, the number one book that they recommend you read is the Communist Manifesto, and of all disciplines. And I had a girlfriend, and she went to a college in New York, and it was for design. And the book she read was the Communist Manifesto. The number one quoted person in all the academics is Karl Marx, and the second one is Lenin. So when you're going into basically Satanists, because when you look up about Karl Marx, he was a Satanist, and it's all about destruction. And so that's what the communism and the fascism, the Nazism is all related to being a Satanist. So it's no surprise you come out that way.
Right.
So I ended up marrying a young lady that was Jewish, and gave me some foundation again with religion, but not much. I was on the outside mostly.
Yes.
But we raised our children. We had a son and a daughter to be Jewish. And then one day, through an extraordinary event, I really don't go into detail because it's really personal.
Sure.
But I was with the one, and that's kind of like how I refer to it, and you can take whatever you want with that.
Right.
But I was reading a book, and this book described people like us, and people that have like a near-death experience and have been with, and I can tell you, it's a love that I can't describe it. It's in every single cell of my body. It's a different feeling. So that's why I really can't talk about it too much there.
Sure.
But from that, we think different. We're called perennials in this book, and it's people who've had these experiences that they tend to live a little more of a moral lifestyle. They don't really see religion and spiritualism and philosophy as that important. They really kind of bypass all that, and they just do what is necessary. So after 28 years of marriage, the wife said, get out and take the dog with you. So I became homeless, and technically I still am, but this is by choice. And I did take a vow of poverty because I had never experienced poverty in my entire life. You could say I had a golden spoon in my mouth. I was raised upper middle class my dad was a CPA, mom stayed at home. So we had a very good life. So from that, my first stop was in Sedona, and I met up with a Christian evangelical family. And I said, I'll give you a year. So I stayed with them for a year, and I saw amazing things done with prayer. They would pray for hours and hours, and then miracle things would happen just by magic. I don't know. I can't explain. Things would happen. And they said that if you do this, you bring it into your life. So it was a wonderful experience. And then I ended up in Maine, traveling all across, and found a girlfriend there with a 2-year-old. And so I raised him to be 11, and then she decided to do the infidelity. And so here I am in the Philippines looking for a wife. And then actually I've been on mostly farms. And what I do is I teach the farmers how to build a dome house with bamboo. So I'm teaching them how to do free housing. And then vertical gardening, instead of bending over like we do for the last 10,000 years, new technology, new techniques, we can raise and grow food vertically. And the next thing is the clinic. So I plan to open up a free medical clinic for the community that I go to. And to finance this, that's when I wrote the book, Forgive and Forget, How to Nuke Your Credit Card Debt.
Yeah. Wow. That's that's a lot to take in, and certainly it's so many years, of course, condensed, and not just the years, but the life well lived and the life experiences of saying goodbye to things. But I want to get into more of this dastardly demon, we could call it, of credit card debt. I often talk about the heavy D's, depression, discouragement, and those there's a few other D words that just are no fun, but everyone encounters. And so thinking back to the business situation that you anticipated, a great windfall and some good success that racked up this amount. Can you get into that a little bit about what brought you to this part, and then we can talk about what you discovered in your research?
Yes. What happened is I wrote a book, and it was on healing, and it was so successful that a company contacted me to do an infomercial. And this was right around 2004. And I was put on the radio for about 6 months. So I needed to be available sometimes at midnight, sometimes at 6 a.m., all across the country. I was being interviewed, and they would check and see the responses that they would get, and they would kind of tweak the message. So it was always a way of marketing it much better. And then what happened is one of the talents, he was an author and he wrote a book about weight loss, but he made false claims, and the FTC came down on him and the company, and basically they canceled my contract because I was waiting for the $100,000 they promised me per month. I ran up $85,000 of credit card debt on 3 cards. And when they canceled it, I was devastated. It took the wind out of my sail, to say. And so it was quite depressing for a while.
Yeah, I can imagine.
From that, I woke up one morning, and my dad being a CPA, and I was in college to study to be a CPA. And I actually had worked as the controller of the Country Club of Rancho Bernardo, doing the work of a CPA, although I wasn't credentialed.
Right.
It dawned on me that the bank had never provided goods and services to me. So they never had an invoice to then demand that I make a payment. And the other one is without signing a promissory note, they cannot legally do a loan. So I'd never signed a promissory note. And then the last thing, my father-in-law for 20 years was an attorney and a judge. And I did a lot of conversations with him. And the legal aspect of it is fraud undoes all contracts. So I never had a contract with the banks.
Wow.
So I initiated a lawsuit, and 3 of them in Los Angeles federal court. And did I win? Well, if you call winning as a jury, which I asked for a jury trial, and a judge slamming the gavel down saying, "You win, Mr. Kilpatrick," I said, "No," the judge threw the case out. Well, then you lost. Well, the 3 credit cards that were on my credit report were all of a sudden deleted. And I never received a 1099-C, which is what the banks do is when you make a loan and you don't pay it back, they tell the IRS, hey, you got money. That's like income. And then we get to take it off of that tax deduction. But that never happened to me. So I do invite, I'm a doubting Thomas, and I do invite you to doubt me and to be skeptical. I don't mind that at all. Even be hostile. I don't mind that at all. But I'd like to encourage you to send this podcast to your CPA and have him or her tell you out of their own mouth that I am absolutely correct. There never was an invoice. The bank could never issue a credit card. 2, the bank never issued you a loan. And there is a simple way of just closing your free checking account and be done with all this debt.
Wow. That's fascinating. And of course, there's just so many roads we could travel down, and to think of Robert Frost for a moment. But I've got to ask you then, can you explain maybe the fundamental difference between what you call a true credit card issued by a private business versus this bank issued alleged credit card? Or maybe you've answered that already.
No, it's a good question. Well, first of all, law is language and language is law. So if you say you have credit card debt, you've got debt and there's no way you can get out of it. Okay. You have agreed that there's a debt. You're just going to try to figure out, hey, can you maybe lower the amount, or maybe we can negotiate the amount, or interest rates or stuff like that. I mean, that's what most people do when they do go to court to fight this credit card. They're just begging for leniency and for, that.
Right.
But really what it is, it's if you use the word alleged, like we've seen a bank robber go in there and we know their name, and the news still has to say they're alleged bank robber. So if you use the word alleged, they have to then prove it. So how we can nuke our alleged credit card debt is to know the difference between real credit cards and the phony ones. So here's a very simple way. You maybe need tires for your car. So you go to a tire store and they have tires and they put them on your car. But you say, it's really kind of expensive. I don't have all the money right now. And they say, hey, apply for this store issued credit card and see if you're approved. And instantly you're approved. You're thrilled. So you have an invoice. Here's the tires they put on your car. Here's the service fee, the balancing and all that kind of things. And here's the taxes. So here's what you owe. At the end of the month, you get a statement, which is fine. And you can then say, allege. Okay, well, then they just send you the invoice. It's an outstanding, unpaid invoice, and you have to pay that. Okay? I am not advocating not paying debts. When you have a debt, you have a debt, and you got to pay it.
Yeah.
Now, take a look at that card. It could be from Macy's or from TJ Maxx. It could be an Amazon card. It could be Walmart. Look on the back of that card. And on the back of that card, if it says issued by Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo, then that's a phony card. And that's the one you can allege.
So the core of your argument then would hinge on the promissory note then? And if so, maybe our listeners might be unfamiliar with banking terminology. Do you want to
not quite yet. I mean, just interrupt you there. Not quite yet, because what we've got is we have to come to the realization that the bank never gave you goods and services. Okay, you didn't go to a bank and they put their tires on your car. They didn't hire an employee to put service onto your vehicle. So there's no way that they could ever issue credit. Think back that when you would go to the general store, hey, Sam, my crops are coming in next week. Hey, can you give me this flour? Sure, buddy. I know you'll pay me after your crops come in. And that was the whole idea of credit, is they believed that you would pay them back. So the bank is tricking you into using that word credit card when they really never issued any credit. So if we can just start with that they did not do any goods and services to you, then we can move on to, oh, it's a loan. Well, now that's where we can see that banks are only involved in loans. Okay.
Yeah.
If you take money to the bank and put it into your new checking account or savings account, that's actually technically a loan. You are loaning your currency to the bank and they pay you interest on it. Okay. When you go the other way, then they loan money to you. All right.
Yes.
Now, when I was in college, in the first course, in about a month into it, maybe 6, 8 weeks, you learn about banking. And they give you this book called Modern Money Mechanics. And I will have a link for you. So you don't need to believe anything I'm saying today. I have links that'll be in your show notes that you can check it out and see that I'm actually 100% correct. So on page 6, this is what the Federal Reserve tells you what's going on. Banks accept your promissory note, then they basically write numbers into your checking account. So they do not create money. They don't print it out. You sign a promissory note first, then they're able to write numbers into account. So that's what's happening with the loan. It was never a loan because you never signed a promissory note. So how do you nuke your bank issued? You got to make sure it's bank issued alleged credit card debt. Is all you got to do is ask to close your free checking account that's tied into that card.
And so can we talk about the promissory note? And maybe there's, like we were talking about words and the power of words, and it's life and death is in the power of the tongue. And as we know, in North American courtrooms, the highest authority is the Bible. And some people will say that, well, Jesus paid all of my debts. And that's a statement for another discussion, that someone had actually sent me their clearing away of some debt in a courtroom related to that. So it seems a little nebulous. There's things going on that we don't know about, almost because we don't know the words. And so can you talk about that promissory note and why its absence is significant?
Right. This does not work for your mortgage. This does not work for your car loan. All right?
Yeah.
Because when you apply for a loan at the bank and the bank denies you, it says, no, you're not going to get it, you don't get the loan, right? But if they approve your application, then what you do is you fill out loan documents. You have to provide proof that you actually have an income, because how are you going to pay it back if you don't have an income? What do you have for collateral? What are you willing to lose if you don't pay it? And that's most likely your house. So that's why you want to make your house payment, because if you don't pay it, they take your house away from you.
That's
Then you also have to have a credit report, and your credit score determines your interest rate. And then the last thing is you have to sign a promise to pay. It's an IOU. So you write that out first. Then what they do is they open a free checking account, because that's how you get the money, isn't it? Through an account. So they count the money out and put it into a account, and that is tied to your name. Because you've signed that promissory note, you're stuck. You got to pay it. But if you didn't sign a promissory note, then how did this credit card thing actually happen? And let me explain that to you.
Yes.
Banks advertise to get you as a customer. Years ago, I remember in the early days, they would give you away a toaster or a wall clock with ways to get you in as a customer.
Gotcha.
When I was living in Southern California, the bank advertised in a newspaper, hey, come in and put $25 into a savings account, leave it there for 90 days, and we will match it. Well, I went in, put $25 down, waited 90 days. Next day, day 91, there was $50 in my account, and I withdrew the money and closed the account. Now, let me ask you a question. Did I rip off the bank?
Not at all.
No. Did I steal from the bank? No. It was their offer. They said, if you do this, we'll do that for you. It's the exact same thing with, like, let's say a $500 gift card that came in the mail. It was given to you You applied for a credit card. They accepted you, and then they mailed it. They gave you, and that's important word is gave. They gave you a gift card, even though it said credit card on it. All right. It was a gift card to get you to be a customer. So you received this $500 credit card. That's what it says on it. But technically, really, it's a gift card. What'd you do with it? Well, let's say you went to Home Depot and bought a toilet, a golden throne. As you're walking out with your toilet on that cart, there's a gentleman there saying, did you pay for that? And you show them the receipt, and it shows that they were paid. And so you walk out. Let me ask you a question. Are you ever going to get a demand of payment from Home Depot for that toilet?
Never.
Never, because you have a receipt. You have a paid receipt. There was an invoice. It doesn't really technically be an invoice, but yes, it is. They put that on the register first. There's your visual invoice, and you paid, and then you got a receipt that was paid in full. So you have proof of that ownership of that toilet. Now, are you going to get a statement in 30 days from Home Depot saying, hey, you owe us money?
Not at all.
And when you have a normal checking account, you get a statement at the end of the month that just shows what happened. Deposits, checks written, interest. It's the exact same thing with your free checking account tied to this alleged credit card. So it's not a bill, but you thought it was a bill. They made it look like it was a bill, and they tried to convince you that you owe them. And if you don't pay, you've got late fees, you've got overdraft fees, you've got interest rates and all this kind of stuff. So if you look it up, which I just did recently, on average, the banks make $23.04 on every credit card every month. So a free checking account is what they got you to open up. And they are charging you $23. When there's 1 million cardholders from one bank, they're making $23 million a month, which is about a fourth of their profit.
Wow.
So what happens is that with this checking account, you can close your free checking account by just simply sending them a letter. Now, for higher amounts, they might push back. And that's where I have developed this whole scenario of a lawsuit. And so you can file a lawsuit with all of the discovery. And the most important thing is the injunction. This is what separates me from everyone else. And all you got to do is send this to the bank. You don't even need to file the lawsuit. You can fill all the paperwork out. And in some areas, you don't even need to pay the court for the filing fee until they respond. And once they see what you're asking for, one, an invoice to prove there's a debt. 2, you're asking for the promissory note, a copy of it to prove that it was a loan. And 3, you're looking for someone in the bank to swear on that Bible that you owe a debt. And that's an affidavit of debt. Since they can't produce that, the judge has to, and this is the thing, has to find them in contempt of court. Because if someone says, you owe me money, and you take them to court saying, no, I don't, you can say to the judge, prove it. Have them bring some proof of their claim. And since they can't, it's over with. So once they see that, and all the bank has to do is a click, and your debt is gone off your credit report.
Wow.
So if you've got 3 credit cards, click, click, click is all the bank has to do. It takes no effort from them at all. And they move on because they're still making $23 million a month.
Yeah. Yes. And what is that Latin phrase for show me the body or something like that in court where there's like no victim, no crime, but it's the I'm sure someone's listening and they're saying it's this phrase has to do with the essentially the dead body of the corporation, as it were.
Corpus.
But we got to know, can you just talk a little bit about your web address, how people can get in touch with you, and what they find when they come to your website?
Thank you very much. What I'm offering is to go to a landing page, basically what it is, and it'll be in your show notes. It's just easier that way. You already said it in the beginning of the show, so I appreciate that. But go to the website, and there's a free book for you to have, and it's an easy download. And if you want to speak to me for 15 minutes for free, I'd love to talk to you about your options. And then if you do that, I will give you my $69 book, Forgive and Forget, How to Nuke Your Credit Card Debt, absolutely free. What I'm really looking for is a company with, let's say, 500, $1 million of this alleged bank-issued alleged credit card debt, and let me speak to their CFO, which is most likely a CPA.
Yeah.
And my dad being a CPA, I have IRS in my DNA,
Yeah,
as
I
I
bet.
say. So I'm very well connected to this. So I want to talk to that accountant first, and they will agree with me 100% of what I'm saying. Now they have an attorney as a vice president. This is perfect, because when I had a charity and I was helping over about 1,000 people eliminate their credit card debt, I ran into situations where they pushed back. So I hired an attorney, and they would lie to me. They would tell me, yeah. Anything I said, they agreed. And once I paid them, once we got to court, oh, no, I can't go in front of this judge with this wacky idea. I don't care if you have a CPA expert witness. It's not going to work. And so over and over, I got shafted by that. So if a company has a large amount, they can actually eliminate this by just those number of clicks.
Wow.
By having their CPA and their attorney on board. So that's what I can really help people with. But the
That's
other people,
fascinating.
just a simple letter. And I can explain that in my book too. And they
So,
won't bother with you.
wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we would love to hear from you in the comments section. And what's your thoughts on this? I mean, sure, everybody could be saying, would this work for me? And from chatting with our friend Tommy, yes, it can work for you. It really, as we're wrapping up here, Tommy, I do appreciate your time, but it just seems like there's so much that we don't actually know. And it's kind of like that line where it's a sin of omission, perhaps, where they're actually omitting the real fine print. I wanted to say can you explain maybe what you mean when you talk about that define winning and the practical results that you achieved?
Yes. If you're looking for a win that the bank is going to send you a letter saying you don't owe the money, that's not going to happen. But because when they see how much it's going to cost them, so if they go through this process, I send them the complaint. They actually receive the injunction, even though you can't file that until they've answered. And usually they'll answer the complaint in about 2 weeks. So also you send them the notice of deposition, and that can happen 10 days after they have answered. So they're already looking at a date of a deposition that someone in the bank is going to have to come to your deposition. You get to ask them questions. And then all the discovery, the production of documents, the admissions, the interrogatories, which are just questions. And they're going to look at this as $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 of legal fees just to start. And they know they're not going to win because they see the injunction that you're going to file.
Wow.
So they know the jig is up. It's just far better for them to go click, click. And if you have filed, then I'll call you up. Their attorney will call you and say, would you please not go forward with this? Because there's no debt. It's not on your credit report anymore. So what's the point?
Wow.
And you couldn't even go to court because there is no debt. You can't claim there's a debt when there's no debt on your credit report.
Yes.
And
Wow.
you will not get a 10C, which is important because that's what's got to be in the letter that you are. And if you do send that 1099C, we have the whole complaint process to the IRS about the fraudulent filing of this 1099C. So they're actually committing tax fraud is what they do if they ever sent that to you.
Yes. And as you said at the beginning, if there's fraud, that ends all contracts and agreements. That's right. Well, there you have it. Yes. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Please, please, please be sure. I did 3 pleases for the 3 clicks. Please be sure to check out the DIY-debtrelief.com and have that personal conversation with Tommy. Tommy, I really appreciate you being here with me. Thank you for joining me for 5 a.m. podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's been a great conversation. And the things you learn when you listen to 5 a.m. podcast and all these people that come my way, courtesy of Podmatch and, well, mostly Podmatch, but others. And thank you, viewers. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you joining in on this conversation. And like I said, if you have not already, please like, share, and subscribe. This conversation, as with my other conversations here on 5 a.m. podcast, will really help someone. Guaranteed. So talk with Tommy. Share this with your friends. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for those that have given us their 5-star reviews. And thank you, too, for those that have gone over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast. We do appreciate your participation and your support, whatever that may look like. Thank you for being here. I'm Michael Klassen. We hope that this episode helps you seize your day and your financial freedom.